They say variety is the spice of life. Imagine what that means for Indian cuisine since we have the most variety of spices. We Indians take extreme pride in our spices. We like our food hot and spicy. And yes, there is a difference between spicy food and hot food. Oh, and fun fact, the mirchi or chili, the pungent, fiery Karara spice we Indians so love, is actually an import, perhaps from South America. But once it was here, we loved it since it could be grown all over the country, unlike the black pepper. The black pepper is still grown in Kerala, and it was the only source of adding pungency to our food before the mirchi arrived. So let's open our Punjabi masaaldaans to see what's inside. Hi Kanika.
Hi, Sakshi.
So what's in your masaldaan, or do you have a masaldaan?
Okay, good question. I don't have a masala, but I have a bunch of spices, all sitting in like their own separate jars. So I don't have a masala, not the traditional round dabba with little smaller sections inside. I don't have that.
So it's like a spice drawer or a spice cabinet is what you have, right?
Right, exactly. So
कह
in my
सकते हैं ऐसा?
yes, yeah, that's the right description. So in my pantry cupboard, I have a complete drawer dedicated to all sorts of spices. And then I have more
Okay.
spices.
Of course. I can totally understand. So
Yeah.
what are like the basics for you? What is what is the thing that you have to stock at all times?
Okay, yeah. So the way it's organized, the first row is the most used row. And the first, in fact, it's because it's a drawer. So, like the first border is the most used border that I can access easily. Obviously, it has salt and it has dhania powder, haldi, lal mirch powder.
Hmm.
And then I have zira, rai,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then I have dhania seeds. So these are, I would say, seven things that are the most used. And these I obviously always have to have.
I'm counting on my fingers and trying to remember my masaldaan. I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
visualize it because it's not in front of me, but I could visualize your drawer
Hmm.
and the border.
Yeah.
But in our house, most of the sabzis, like everyday sabzis or tadkas or something, we put these spices and often we are telling each other recipes of things. कि इसमें क्या डलेगा? नमक, मिर्च, हल्दी, धनिया. So
Ha.
it's almost said it's almost said in one breath. It's like that.
Ha.
So garam masala is also there and
Yeah.
jeera is also there in my masaldaan, and I put salt in two of the little
Yeah.
katoris that are in the masaldaan. But namak, mirch, haldi, dhania. Then there is jeera and there is garam masala. So that's what is in my masaldaan. The
Okay.
all our powders, only khada masala there is the jeera. Baki sab I keep in separate boxes. So a little bit about masaldaan. I was asked this question that why do you need a
Right.
masaldaan? Keep them in airtight jars. So the masaldaan is, I think, for me, for my convenience, I keep only a little bit there, and it's topped up from the stock that lies in airtight jars. So that's how things function in my spice drawer, which also houses my masala. And the other masalas, like I said, they're all there in the drawer. And whenever I'm making something special like chole or rajma, where I do want to put khade masale, the drawer is opened further and पीछे से मैं वो निकालती हूँ, and then I add all
I
those
see.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Like, yeah, masala, and that makes sense because you only take out as much as you're going to use over, a week, 10 days, maybe. They're not large katoris or inserts. My mom's masala was very similar, except that she would also keep. She would have three seeds in her masala. She would have cumin seeds, jeera. She would have rye seeds, mustard, and she would also have ajwain. And then, of course, namak, haldi, dhania, mirch. Garam masala was always separately kept because it was used very sparingly. Uh, ऊपर से डालने में,
Mhm.
not so much to cook with. And I think अजवाइन because परांठे बनने हैं सुबह, you know, टिफिन के लिए या कुछ भी, तो अजवाइन is a good thing to use for your paranthas.
Right.
So that's my understanding of it. Yeah.
So there are, so I have these airtight jars, and then I have these smaller other glass jars that I keep. And there are also some collectible tins and all. So the seed. The seeds that you mentioned, the mustard seed goes in another cabinet. It's very strange. It's always been in all the kitchens that I have had, like my personal kitchens. I've always kept the mustard seeds, the rye separately, because वो भी use होती है काफी, मतलब in a lot of cooking that I do. And ajwain is not as much used, but it has to be there. I have to have, मुझे कभी भी अजवाइन के पराठे का मन कर सकता है, so I want ajwain to be there. Yeah. And ajwain I also put in anything, like, you know, if I'm making parathas, I will just grind some, because my husband doesn't like ajwain, so I grind some and sneak some in. If I put it just like that, he will obviously find out, but then anyway, with powder also, he finds out that I put ajwain in it.
Okay, that's interesting. I've never used powdered ajwain. I've used like powdered zira, and, you know, obviously powdered dhania is your dhania powder. But I've never used.
Yeah, but I pound it there and then. I don't have a fine powder of ajwain. I just pound it there and then sneak some in very sneakily.
Okay, that's great. So you mentioned the word खड़े मसाले.
Right.
When you were saying कि तुम्हारा अलग से drawer है, उसमें ढूंढने पड़ते हैं. So let's talk about this category of spices. I mean, खड़े मसाले, I guess the easiest way to translate it into English is whole spices.
Right.
Like in their whole form. They haven't been ground into powders. Let me ask you a few. Let's do a little rapid fire quiz. So I'll say the names of these very dependable khade masale in Hindi, and you tell me the English names if you know them.
I might not know some of them, but okay.
I'm sure you will. Alright, so let's go. Badi ilaichi.
Black cardamom. I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tezpatta.
Bay leaf.
Yes. Dalchini.
So dalchini is, I'll tell you, cassia bark and cinnamon, because they both come from different places.
That's
and
true.
One cassia bark is more often used as compared to cinnamon, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
है ना?
हाँ, एक true cinnamon है, एक बहन है उसकी. हाँ. Long.
Cloves.
Okay. Yeah. I always say cloves. I guess you say cloves. I've heard some other people also say cloves, but I just say cloves.
I said it and I'm not sure of. I will just say long. So, but I got that right.
Yeah. And the last one, and this is a pair, Jaifal and Javitri, also called Zephyl, I think sometimes.
Really?
So Jaifal and Javitri. I've heard Zephyl also.
अच्छा, मैंने Jaifal और Javitri सुना है, but nutmeg and mace. And you know what? I had heard the name Jaifal and Javitri and not really known. होते हैं, मतलब they used to be there in my mom's kitchen, but very sparingly used. And I did not know that they are from the same plant. And it was not until I went to Kerala and I actually saw it growing, and it was just so fascinating. I was like, ये क्या है इतना exotic सा with that little net? So the mace is actually, it encases it's like a jali, it encases the jaifal, and it is just so fascinating. And I was just very intrigued looking at it, very fascinated with it all. But मैंने use
I know it's always it's kind of adventurous to find out where your food comes from, right? Like your milk is coming from a cow, like little kids who might not know. So I'm just thinking of that image.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of discovery is so fascinating. Because I remember going to a spice plantation with my parents in Goa. Of all things, that's what we did. We didn't go to the beaches. But it was so much fun because we saw the pepper plant, we saw cardamom, green cardamom, and there was like बहुत कुछ था, खैर bay leaf भी था, So they were telling us about the bay leaf, and there is a relationship between bay leaf and dalchini.
Acha.
And I think that's,
yes.
the bark, yeah.
Is it the same tree?
Yeah, it's the same tree.
Right. Oh my God, these trees were there in Kerala. I saw the leaf and मुझे पता होता मैं थोड़ी bark खुरच लेती.
क्योंकि bay leaf is sort of like the dalchini. It has there are different trees. So what we might be using might not be a true bay leaf, but because like you were saying, the cassia.
Oh, acha. Okay.
So I think there are different categories of tezpatta also. Because यहाँ California में भी उगते हैं काफी.
हाँ, you're right. And sometimes they like some recipes on some other magazines or something will say Indian bay leaf. So that's where it comes from, right? Okay, discoveries. But do you use
so
these?
As exotic. Sorry.
Do you use these? The ones that you weave?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. That's what I was thinking. Ki, even though they sound very exotic, even though khade masale, अरे ये क्या चीज़ है खड़े मसाले? कौन से खड़े मसाले चाहिए? But देखा जाए तो ये बहुत common है. This is very common stuff, right?
So
like, can you name a?
Some of them are common for me. Some of them I've had and not used. Like the badi ilaichi, I used to put in my chole earlier all the time. But अब मैं कम use करती हूँ क्योंकि वो गरम होता है तो मैं इतना नहीं use करती. But badi ilaichi has just been lying. I haven't bought. I didn't need to buy more because वो खत्म ही नहीं हुई है अभी तक. And
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, long tejpatta dalchini I use, but jaifal or nutmeg, I think I've probably used it in a meat recipe sometimes, and that's what it was used for in my house. And maybe I've sprinkled some powder over my hot chocolate, but I have learned that powder बेकार होता है, उसी time grind करना चाहिए. So that is something.
Yeah, that's true. So you're right. Jaifal and Javitri, I've seen most often in my Dadi Ji's kitchen. Because she would have a few exotic spices, कि कभी कुछ special बनाना है. And they were not used a lot. In fact, nutmeg कभी पड़े खराब भी हो जाता है because उसमें कीड़ा लग सकता है. Like all spices, you don't want to store things for too long.
अच्छा.
So
I should check my badi ilaichi.
हाँ, बड़ी इलायची के साथ इतना हुआ नहीं. I use बड़ी इलायची, I put one in, like when I'm cooking chicken. There's a recipe like the 3-ingredient chicken on our blog. If you want to add a little more flavor to it, you can add some khade masale to it. It's as simple as that.
Right.
So for me, like rajma, I would always use these, not Jaifal and Javitri, but all the other 4 that we mentioned. Even dalchini sometimes, not always, but tezpatta, badi ilaichi, long are very commonly used.
So what are the most common ones for you? Most common khade masale for you?
बड़ी इलायची, तेजपत्ता, लौंग, ये तो हमेशा होते हैं.
अच्छा.
And दालचीनी भी मैं रखती हूँ क्योंकि again for meat and chicken recipes. Then I keep other spices, like I keep methre, which is methi seeds. I keep those. I keep a bunch of other things also, kalonji, and because that adds a nutty flavor. And I keep fennel seeds, saunf, and what else do I keep? I mean, I always have whole black peppercorns. I mean, that goes without saying. You have to have pepper.
Yeah, that is what I thought. You didn't mention it, and I was like, मेरे लिए सबसे important black pepper है. मतलब जीरा है. Actually सबसे पहले जीरा है क्योंकि जीरा रोज यूज होता है. खड़े मसाले मेरे लिए especially like it goes into things like rajma, chole, chicken, or sometimes even pulao. I don't always use badi ilaichi like I said, but tezpatta मैं भूल जाती हूँ use करना, but फिर it is nice. I really like it. I started using more of it. The long, and I will put just like 1 or 2, and that should be enough. And but yeah, a combination of these are used. Yeah, but jeera is most important for me. Jeera and black pepper.
So actually, that's the difference. I don't think of jeera as a khada masala. Like I think of jeera as a everyday masala.
You're right.
So I don't think of it as this thing that I reach for only once in a while. So Zira, let's talk about the most common way of using these spices, right? What is we call it making a tadka.
Right.
Right. Some people even call bagar. Yeah, just a chonk. You have that recipe for
Yeah.
chonk. हाँ, जो दाल chonk वाली दाल. And so for me, the most common thing is I cannot make a tadka without zira. Like if I have to make a regular tadka, I have to have zira.
Correct.
So when I think of khade masale, I just kind of divide it into stuff that I use a little less, that I use sparingly, or for special things or for certain recipes.
Right. So मैं technicality में चली गई और मुझे लगा कि नहीं ये तो whole है इसका powder थोड़ा ना मैंने रखा हुआ है तो I just went into that technicality and thought कि नहीं ये तो खड़ा मसाला होता है. But you're right. For me also it's an everyday thing. So that is why I said I have to have it. So yes, it is like on that. It's on that fine line of like it is technically that, but yeah, it's also an everyday and it's nothing special, but it's essential. So yes, it goes into my tadka, but sometimes I skip it and I change it for mustard seeds, rai, sarson. And chalk में कुछ seed जाएगा तो ये सब जाएगा और So for me, I also use sauf. I started using sauf in my pulaus, and just to imitate some sort of like fragrant biryani or yakhni sort of flavor, and it's quite nice. Right. Sauf along with other things, and methre I do use for like purani Delhi stuff like khatte aloo or something like that. Like with bedmi, the aloo that I have, I always put that. And yes, coriander seeds are, I think, they help to add bulk. They help to add a lot of, the powder, coriander powder, helps to thicken gravies, I think. But coriander also helps to mimic that restaurant kind of kadhai flavor a lot of times, like kadhai paneer and all that. मुझे ऐसा लगता है. तो मैं उसमें भी यूज करती हूँ. अच्छा नहीं coriander powder in like my parents' house was almost non-negotiable. Like you have to have coriander powder. हाँ, of course. तो जैसे दाल का तड़का है. Like my dad used to make this dal ka tadka, moong masoor plain dal. The best thing about that dal is the tadka, like how you add the tadka. And so he would put good amount of dhania powder in the tadka and roast it in the tadka. Right. And then pour it into the dal. And that does elevate the flavor a lot. I agree. मुझे डांट पड़ चुकी है घर में कि इतना सारा बहुत ज़्यादा डाला है. Because I thought ये तो बहुत ही so nice and fragrant and citrusy. I thought. So I used to put a lot of this in. Put a lot of coriander powder in tadka. And मुझे मम्मी से डांट पड़ती थी कि ये कितना बस बहुत है और नहीं डालो. So that sort of a thing. Actually, and there's always a danger of burning ground spices, right? So, like, what is it? Do you have a technique to avoid doing that? Low flame, mostly. It's just low flame. That it's not too hot. But at the same time, it is also essential to let them splutter and let them, bloom in the hot oil. Yeah. But if I also add a little bit of water now. Earlier, I was hesitant to do that, but I do add like a tablespoon of water or 2 tablespoons of water. Yeah, I was actually coming to that. To bring it together. Yeah, I was coming to the use of water because, not just the fact that you kind of bloom them in oil. Oftentimes, when you're cooking certain recipes, we'll just say ki mix your masala in dahi. For instance, you're making mutton. Like we have this mutton recipe on the blog. Usme you just mix the masala in dahi and pour it once your mutton has been raad na, usko saute kar chuke ho and brown kar chuke ho. Once you've browned your mutton, then you add the spices. And they are moist, so they don't burn instantly. Right. But they seep into the curry. So yeah, there are ways of cooking with it. And we'll not get too technical and too boring. But thinking of like so Jaifal and Javitri, like what these, we both agreed there's just these exotics that are so rarely used. Right. What are the others? Can you think of anything else? Dekho, like I have never bought kalonji in the past 7 years. I've never used it. It's that exotic for me. मैंने मतलब शायद नान के ऊपर चिपकी हुई देखी है कुलचों के ऊपर देखी है, but if I'm making at home, I wouldn't really go to the length of stocking it, and फिर उसके बाद मैं क्या करूँगी उसका. So it is that exotic. But kesar is one thing I always keep. Kesar is an exotic. It is what is it? It's that part of the flower. It's the stamen.
Stamen of the saffron.
And I get excellent saffron here thanks to the spice in Dubai, and it's really good. So yeah, that is one exotic I have. And और भी कुछ है, और क्या है?
अच्छा नहीं, that's surprising. मैं तो कलौंजी हमेशा रखती हूँ.
हाँ, I think that's what it depends from house to house and what your family cooks and all that. What do you use it in? Kalonji.
Oh, I use it in tadka. So if you're making an achari kind of recipe, like if you're making an achari paneer, achari कोई भी सब्जी, achari chicken, कुछ भी, उसमें you can put it. So you put, your cumin, you put fennel, you put kalonji, you can even put methre, you can put all these spices, and together they taste really good.
Yes. अब मेरी बत्ती जली है और मुझे याद आ गया देखिए आम के अचार में ये सब डलता है. But I haven't stocked these because मैंने कभी अचार डाला नहीं है वो वाला. So I've never had these in the house. I've never really stocked this. But yes, घर में I think उसका use यही था. That is how it was used.
Another one that I remember that's kind of similar sounding, but it's a completely different thing is chironji.
Oh yeah, चिरौंजी लाल कोई कैरेक्टर का नाम था.
Oh, चिरौंजी, हाँ वो तो खैर नाम होता है, but yeah, I'm showing, so I'm pointing my phone to Sakshi on the screen and she can see what I've pulled up on Wikipedia.
I can barely see it. Should I just Google चिरौंजी?
हाँ, चिरौंजी उसको चरोली भी कहते हैं.
अच्छा.
And this is a, I frankly, just like your mace moment, I don't exactly know which tree it comes from, but again from my grandmother's pantry, she always had it, and this is delicious in kheer.
We've both spoken of things that are used in sweet things, so there are uses of these exotics in a lot of sweet stuff, and sweet stuff isn't always made every day. So yeah, that's interesting. Another batti has gone has lit up. Yes. Yes, chironji does go into sweet stuff, and a lot of so I made thandai the other day following your recipe.
Oh, nice.
Which I think our listeners, viewers will know very soon about. And उसमें भी काली मिर्च डलती है and सौंफ.
Right, सौंफ डलती है.
Elaichi. Oh my God, we haven't mentioned elaichi.
Oh yes, elaichi. Yes, elaichi. Like badi elaichi to hai, but choti elaichi, like regular elaichi. That is such a flavorful ingredient, and a little goes a long way. You just need a few seeds, or you use the entire pod.
I use the entire pod.
I actually try not to. Yeah, I try not to waste it.
Right.
So if I have to grind it, I will often just grind the whole thing and not bother.
Yeah, I would do the same. Like even I would do that, but like my mom keeps ground saunf and ground elaichi. Elaichi not every time she does it, but I'm a little hesitant to grind masalas and keep it.
Okay.
ये एक किया था मैंने शुरू में, that when I came here I started grinding my own coriander powder, and I've even ground my own garam masala, but
same.
But अब मैं नहीं कर पाती हूँ.
Yeah, okay, so we'll talk about garam masala in a bit. But elaichi definitely, and so you mentioned thandai, there are things like nimbu pani, shikanji, there is masale wali chai.
Yeah.
Like I think when we were talking about winter, I was mentioning my dad's khade masale wali chai. Like he'll put like a black cardamom in his tea while he's boiling it, boiling the water for it. So yeah, there are uses beyond savory foods, beyond just namkeen.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, no, I put elaichi in my chai almost every day these days.
Oh, nice.
With ginger. So elaichi adrak wali chai is what we
मुझे काढ़ा भी याद आ रहा है. अब अगर कुछ बीमार हो जाओ तो काढ़ा देते हैं. काढ़े में काफी कुछ डलता है.
हाँ, but
Long डलती है. Long क्योंकि is meant to have antiseptic qualities.
But also flatulence benefits a lot.
Ajwain.
Thanks to ajwain and all these things, they really help. Ajwain ka pani and हींग.
Oh yeah, हींग.
हींग तो रेजिन होता है. हींग स्पाइस होता है कि रेजिन, मतलब रेजिन तो नहीं बोलेंगे, बट वो मसालदान एंड spice drawer में ही आता है, तो let's call it spice, I think.
Yeah, I think like in the broad category of things, we'll call it a spice.
Right. Yeah, it's an.
Although.
Okay, let us rename the episode. Let
Sure.
us call it spices, aromatics, and beyond.
Yeah.
So that way is जो हमें याद आ रहा है. I think it's all relevant to Indian food. It's all relevant to North Indian food. I think these are very essential.
Sorry. I don't know of another cuisine that uses hing.
Hing, actually, I read about it the other day, and they do call it very nasty names because of how smelly it devils something.
Very sulfuric, right? Like it's like rotting eggs sometimes.
Yeah,
it can be really strong.
Right. I think other cuisines also use it, but very sparingly.
So
जिगरा चाहिए use.
नहीं, but अगर Indian food में तो I think the secret is what people don't know. It's like it might be stinky when you just smell hing powder, or if you remember जो hing की छोटी सी शीशी आती है, because again you use very little. वो clumps में होती है कभी कभी. Then you have to take it out, you have to grind it, with your mortar and pestle, or just break it apart somehow. So I was listening to something on NPR, the radio here, and Mariam Reshi was speaking about hing, and she was talking about how they are trying to grow hing in Indian hills, because it is actually a mountainous thing which only grows in certain very dry, arid mountain regions of Afghanistan.
Yes, you told me.
Right. Yeah, like we don't even grow it in our country. We are the consumers. Like Indian cooking consumes most hing in the world. It's basically like it's only produced for us. The interviewer was then setting the scene, and she says she was of Indian origin, and she says, the moment I add it to my hot oil while I'm making a tadka for my dal, my place just smells divine.
Right.
So I think it changes, right? Like hitting hot oil changes how something smells, and the flavor also.
I think it is. I think important to know how can you best use an ingredient, and it might be something else from how you use it. So Anita's recipe for rajma gogji uses hing ka pani. When I made it, I had to make little pani, like I had to just dissolve it in a teaspoon of water, and then.
Same here. Same here. I had no idea.
I think that is also another experience, that when you're cooking, when you're making a tadka, and you mentioned like how the entire place smells, but it's also putting things in hot oil, and then they'll splutter, they'll splash, and if there's any water, obviously if it goes into hot oil, it's also like
you have to be careful.
It is ऐसी थोड़ा scary भी हो सकता है, मतलब
True.
कि जल भी सकता है, थोड़ा oil आपके ऊपर आ जाएगा, and all that. All those things are part of the entire experience of cooking with Indian spices and to using them properly, I think. And also pungent smells. It takes a while to get used to. For a new cook, I think you might not, if you're not familiar with these smells, if you don't know how to use these things, it might be a little intimidating. Oh my God, how do I get this smell out of my apartment?
It is challenging. Also, I was just thinking of ASMR now that everything is on video and everything is on social media, and so I was just thinking those are the things that give that ASMR kind of feeling to the process of cooking, right? The sounds and splashes and all of that.
Right.
Okay, so masale. अब हमने स्पाइसेस की बात की है. स्पाइस को हिंदी में क्या कहते हैं? मतलब मसाले कहते हैं, खड़े मसाले, है ना, मसाले. But there's also
बैठे मसाले.
बैठे.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
But masale are also other things. Like the powders are also yeah. Well, you can take a moment to rejoice in your own. comedic.
बहुत बुरा था but
Yeah.
हंसी आ रही है. Okay, हाँ.
हाँ.
Yeah.
But masale also mean like obviously ground masale, मतलब ground spices. So we've already mentioned garam masala. We also have a couple of others that are used in North Indian kitchens like pav bhaji masala, chana masala. I don't know if there's a rajma masala. I'm pretty sure MDH must have come up with a concoction. If when the moment I think,
It is there.
the moment I think of a masala, the only brand I can ever think of is MDH. That logo of MDH.
Mahashe Gulati.
The Hatti. He passed away recently.
Yeah,
the founder.
he passed away recently. Yeah, Mahashe the Hatti.
Mahashe the Hatti. Yes. So, do you ever use any masala, like a mixed spice of this sort?
Yeah, I use pav bhaji masala.
Achha.
And recently I bought Kitchen King masala on my sisters and sisters.
Kitchen King, oh yeah, something.
Pav bhaji. Yeah. Actually, that's the entire range. That jingle has the entire range.
Yeah. Pav bhaji, oh yeah, garam masala.
Asli masale, such.
MDH.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah, of course, we're not sponsored. Chaat masala. You actually.
Chaat masala.
I mean, you have a recipe for it. Like you kind of made your own batch of chaat masala. And garam masala की हर घर की recipe होती है ना अपनी.
हाँ, ये भी होता है कि गरम मसाले की अपनी recipe होती है. And mentioning chaat masala, you reminded me कि amchur is another powder that I have. Salt is another powder I have. So there are these aromatics and there are these khatai agents like anardana and now I have even sumac.
Oh, that's new. Yeah. Okay.
But all these things are there, and I have a recipe for chaat masala, but out of convenience I just buy it. So coming back, Kitchen King masala मैंने use किया और मुझे लगता है उसमें काफी सारा धनिया पाउडर है and मिर्च है.
Yeah.
And little bit of garam masala. I feel and all of them have turmeric for sure. And I feel all these masalas that they sell are just in different proportions of namak, mirch, haldi, dhania, and some sort of powder of the garam masala and the khade masale and all that. I think it's just different permutation combination. जो कि हम घर पे बना लेते हैं. I don't really buy specific masala except for pav bhaji masala. And garam masala, sometimes I buy. It's been a while since I made it on my own.
Ani, that's correct actually. Even in my mom's kitchen, and the only masala that she ever used was pav bhaji masala. Garam masala, हाँ, होता था. Sparingly use hota tha. And again, like she would not cook with it. She would like put it on the dal once it's done cooking and it's still warm, so that it kind of aerates well and kind of the masala kind of blooms by the steam of it, not by cooking it in oil. You've obviously critiqued them already, saying that they're just a repetitive formula.
I think so.
Yeah, I think the problem is that you then lose the capability of understanding what is more, what is less, right? Like if you don't know the individual ingredients, because then I don't have too much control of changing it, right? If I just put...
Control is the word I was thinking of, yes.
उनका धनिया जितना उन्होंने डालना था डाल दिया, मैं उसको कम कैसे करूं?
Yeah, so a simple thing like mirch, like I mentioned at the beginning, that hot is different from spicy. And अगर मुझे कम मिर्ची खानी है, but I also want enough flavor in my food, then what do I do if I'm depending only on your masala? And I feel that it's not hot enough or it's too hot for me. So that way, I think most traditional Indian houses probably, I think, might not rely on these. Whereas some cooks who are in a hurry, who might not stock khade masale, only stock bethe masale, they might rely on these. So that's what my assumption is.
Yeah.
Not to say that they're not good, but it's convenience at the end of it. So, but I personally don't.
Yeah, no, that's right. And hot or spicy se kya lag raha tha? Like, how would you define it? Because I don't think I used the word hot to describe heat level until I really had to communicate with people who were, from a Western culture. Like in India, I don't recall saying, "Oh, this is too hot." Like you would just revert to your Hindi or "बहुत तीखा है," yeah, "बहुत तेज है," "तेज तीखा." Like there's so many ways of talking about the mirchi ka level kitna hai.
I think it's language, and it's like अगर मैं गरम मसाला उनको ट्रांसलेट करके बोलूं तो will I have to say like hot masala?
Hot
That
masala.
doesn't make sense. That doesn't
Yeah,
make
warm
sense.
masala. Yeah.
Warm masala. Yeah, they are warming spices. They're more
Yeah.
delicate. But
Right.
that doesn't really, yeah, hot food, I think it is more consumption of the media from the West talking about their food, and they are the ones calling it hot. हम तो चिली बोलते हैं like
हाँ मिर्ची चिली हाँ
मसालेदार मिर्ची
Yeah.
वाला खाना तेज मिर्ची or something
Yeah.
like that. So I think it's also the culture. We as a culture we use all these spices, not spouses. We use all these
Yeah.
spices, and we have the vocabulary to describe all these things, and they probably don't, except for like
The basic
peppered with humor.
and also like just the basic taste profiles, right? Like, you know, sweet, salty, savory, sour, and then hot for chili. That's it. Just 5 flavor profiles. Whereas
Is umami an English word or is it Japanese?
It's Japanese.
I think it's Japanese.
So it again comes from another culture,
Borrowed
and that's
है,
probably the 6th thing. Borrowed है, हाँ. Whereas हमने मतलब अगर मैं बोलूँ कि ये बहुत चटपटा है, won't your taste buds automatically know what that means?
Right. Oh, you made me think of chaat.
Right? Like you can imagine it. Golgappe ka pani, if you hear the word, you can associate it. So anyway, so now coming back to the masaldaan, like we are both Punjabis, we've been talking about our Punjabi kitchens, our seasonal eating. And so as a Punjabi, like what is the most common tadka you would make?
I have.
And maybe that's where we can close. Like this you have to have. I mean, I feel hobbled but if I don't have one particular
You want to
thing.
answer this first or you want me to answer?
Yeah, like I have to have zira. Powders, yes, they're good to have. Like, but if I just have zira and if I have salt and if I have pepper, then I can add aromatics like garlic and ginger. I think I will still feel pretty comfortable and confident that okay, this will taste fine. But if I don't have zira, I just can't make a tadka for most things without zira.
Yeah, for me also it's jeera, and you call it zira, I call it jeera. And जीरक कौन बोलता है संस्कृत में बोलते हैं पता नहीं maybe anyway
पता नहीं check कर लेंगे
but jeera and मिर्ची like as soon as you said के basic तड़का मेरे दिमाग में ऐसे आया कि अगर मुझे किसी plain उबली हुई दाल में basic तड़का डालना है छौंक डालना है which would be घी में hot घी में जीरा and मिर्ची and मिर्ची वाला घी. That would be my 2 basic things, I think. But there was a moment, I think, into the lockdown period where I ran out of mirchi. And I was making poha. And मैं पोहे में डालती हूँ थोड़ी बहुत लाल मिर्च powder. I use a Kashmiri लाल मिर्च powder. And I didn't have it. And my husband was also around and like, put chili flakes. And he said it and he actually did that.
Yeah.
He opened the cupboard, he put chili flakes. And it was just not the same thing.
No, it's not. Yeah. I use chili flakes sometimes. I'll put it at the beginning of the tadka, like, you know, in the oil.
Same.
Because I want them to kind of leave their color and flavor. But it's not the same thing. And I've discovered the wonders of using Kashmiri lal mirch because it gives the color but not the same hit of spice, like hit of heat. And so you can, yeah, I love the color.
Right, so do I. I think I don't use the other mirch now. I use only Kashmiri lal mirch. And I know how much to put it in case in between brands or stocks, if I get another mirch and I put it and I measure it the same amount I do Kashmiri lal mirch, then the food will be too spicy. Because wo wali mirch tez hoti hai, so. Yeah,
that's true. Okay, so on that note, I guess we can end this very spicy, tikha, karara episode.
Hopefully. Peppered with my weird humor.
Yeah. So
apology.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to this. Please listen to all the episodes of season 1 if you still haven't. You can find us on the website, which is kitchenpostcards.com. You can find us on SoundCloud as Kitchenpostcards Podcast, on Google Podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, and at other aggregators as well. Find us on Instagram, find us on Facebook, write to us, tell us what you enjoyed. Did we miss out on something? Do you use things to make your tadka differently than we do? We would love to know. Please don't forget to review the podcast and to rate us. It really does help people find us. And we look forward to talking to you next time. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.